and this is from the Austin Monitor. New data shows lead in drinking water at 5 more Austin schools. Keep in mind, what's going on in Flint, Michigan is absolutely terrible.
But it's all over.
It's not just in Flint, Michigan.
Chicago was another place. Rahm Emanuel buried that study. Rahm Emanuel thought he was being slick and say, I'm going to show how awesome Chicago is. They find all of these contaminants in the water in Chicago, and Rahm Emanuel buries the study. It's not just Flint, unfortunately.
It's 278 zip codes have affected water that we know of so far. 278 zip codes have water that is not up to snuff. Lead has been found in the drinking water of 5 Austin public schools. New data obtained by the Environment Texas from the Austin Independent School District shows it's the second time in the past year the toxic metal has been discovered in Austin schools and facilities. The tests have revealed lead at levels considered especially unsafe by the American Academy of Pediatrics and certain taps at Boone and Patton Elementary Schools, Bailey and Covington Middle Schools, and Lanier High School. Exposure to lead in children can cause irreversible cognitive and behavioral problems. After the drinking water crisis in Flint, Michigan pointed a spotlight on lead contamination, Austin also decided to test the water.
Wow.
And, typically you find a pattern with this. Usually they decided to privatize things at some point. They cut corners. There's something going on like fracking.
Yeah.
And that's how this stuff comes into play. And that's how this stuff happens. And I don't know how we can't get that basic lesson that you can't mess with water.
No,
I mean, our bodies are like 90-some% water. You can't mess with water. You can't cause environmental destruction and ask questions later. You can't go against peer-reviewed science and ask questions later. When it comes to water, it's too high a risk. I mean, you talk to anybody in the science community about what the oil and gas companies are doing and what are, and they laugh about it because that's the only way they can stay sane. Because they know this stuff, and they're just like, yeah, it's even conservative scientists, like scientists I know that are conservative leaning politically. When it comes to the environment, they're like, oh yeah, we're nuts. What we're doing is absolutely nuts. It is insane what we're doing. I don't know if we're going to be able to get better from this. Like it's nuts. We are literally a walking virus, and it's coming to this end. We had no stewardship whatsoever. And I'm not one of these like total idealists. I understand that we're going to have some environmental impact for humanity. I'm totally understanding of that. But that doesn't mean you throw away any type of scrutiny whatsoever, which is what we've done. I mean, we're pretty much making our earth a playground at the expense of our drinking water.
It's weird. And
weird is one way to put it.
I don't think they care, if that makes sense. I think they look at it as
long as it's not in their backyard, they don't care.
Right. It's not my backyard. It's the separation of the people who are making decisions from the people who are affected by those decisions, either from the policy standpoint or the business standpoint. Like, because if you look at media acts as if, these are good, honorable gentlemen running these corporations, and as if, the M&M is actually this little chocolate morsel that dances on a screen, and that this is some kind of family. It's not. It's sugar and fat and all this other stuff. It's diabetes. It's the social impact of the things that they do is felt at a lower end of the economic scale, in which case that lower end of the economic scale is almost completely invisible from the standpoint of the spotlight of the media. I mean, after all, you could fix that issue, but you wouldn't be able to spend $1 trillion on the military. And it is very important to spend $1 trillion on the military.
Oh, absolutely. When people talk about jobs and this, I'm like, look, we spend more than the next 13 countries combined on our military. If we slash that budget, we'd still have way more than what we need. And we could invest in infrastructure. We could invest in healthcare. We could give tuition-free college.
Well, the military is a jobs
we don't want to do that.
It's a jobs program. I mean, ultimately what it is. I mean, you're talking about spending like $1 trillion. And the wild part about it is when we spend $1 trillion, and we always talk about other countries, being militaristic and having military parades. I hate to tell people that spending $1 trillion is a military parade. Whether you have the actual military parade or not, it is a military parade, knowing that everyone spends their money. But people assume that just because you spend that much, that you're getting that much value for the money that you spend it on. Look at healthcare. We spend. Well, no,
we spend more than all the other industrial industrialized countries, and
we're worse off.
When it
we're
comes
like 30 something.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
making the same point about military.
Yeah, well, with military, we have people that are powerful, and this isn't the people in the military. The people in the military are mostly people that had no other option because they were being crushed by an economic system.
Or they believe in something.
Or
they have certain beliefs. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. But in most cases, it's these people at the top, the really powerful people, the intelligence agencies, the people that really have the ear of our government. They think in the economy of war. They think in terms that you and I can't even imagine, because to them, war is just an economic opportunity. To quote Smedley Butler, to them, war is a racket. So it's like, where are we going next? Where can we exploit? What minerals can we get? What resources can we get? And that's why the intelligence agencies don't like Trump. They don't dislike Trump because his policies are morally repulsive. His policies are just Republican policies. They're fine with Republicans.
Yes, I keep saying
Trump
that.
policies are just Republican policies. He is no different than any other Republican, except he lacks subtlety. That's it. That's the only difference.
He's just honest. Yeah, like he's honest in a weird way. He's honest in regards to what he represents.
He's accidentally honest. And what the intelligence agencies are worried about is that he'll say something dumb that's really going to take the mask off. That's what they're scared of. That's why they don't like him.
That mask is already off.
It is. Well, to people like you and I, it is. To the general populace, I would say no, it is not. Nowhere close.
Fair enough.
I mean, to people like you and I, yeah. To people watching this, yeah. But to the general populace, abso-freaking-lutely not. You go up to the general person, I'm going to go vote, now. And I bet if I go up to a lot of people and I say, are you worried about the military budget? They're going to, I think a lot of them will be like, oh, is that, I guess maybe that's not right. I mean, I think a lot of people, our media never talks about it. So
no. Wait. It does. It just doesn't talk about it in terms that would ever lower the budget, if that makes sense. Like it's always talked about in these kind of glorious, like Trump fires a missile strike. And that's a perfect opportunity.
Oh, yeah, they celebrate.
Is that legal?
They celebrate war, but as far as the budget, they don't talk about. I mean, we just gave them how many more billion just as a bonus. That wasn't even talked about. Most of the Democrats went along with it. It wasn't even talked about in the media. I mean, you got to go to independent sources like your show, like my show, like the Jimmy Dore show, like Lee Camp. You got to go to independent sources to even hear about stuff like that.
It's aggravating.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Ultimately, we're talking about killing people. That's what we're talking about, essentially. And there's another point that you made that I think is awesome. You said we can't fathom how they think. And I often try to tell, my mom when her and I are talking about this stuff. And
I can tell you have a good relationship with your mom, and that's great. I have a good relationship with my mom too. I have a good relationship with my mom.
Her and I talk about this stuff sometimes, like politics. She is.
That's good, man. Yeah, you.
But she even I try to get across to her that because she's my everyday person, if that makes sense. Like she's my link to the rest of the world.
How often do you guys talk?
We talk all the time.
All right, so like every day, you and your mom chat it up.
More or less, yeah.
That's awesome. And I mean, dude, I used to talk to my mom more. I will let you make your point in a second here. But we're talking about our moms. This is very important.
Go for
it. No, I used to talk to my mom more when I was on the road full time. So I'd be in the car for like hours on end. So I would call my mom, and I don't get to talk to her as much these days, but I still talk to her a good bit. So
I didn't for the longest time. Her and I used to talk all the time. We have a close relationship, and my wife and I are planning on traveling within a month or two, and so we didn't necessarily want to get a full lease of a year if we were going to travel, because we either had to break the lease or wait for the lease over with. And I got to be honest, I kind of want to go, and so we want to go from place to place to place. So my mom has it upstairs that she's not using, so we end up moving up here. So she loves it because her kid is at home at least for the next 3 months before they go. My wife and her get along fabulously well, and it's a little awkward because I haven't been at home for like 20 years or so, but it's fine. But nevertheless, I talked to her about this stuff and kind of making this point to her, how you perceive the world, how you think of the world, and how most people think of the world when they go about their affairs. You may have somebody at work that you're annoyed with, but ultimately you don't think your boss is a killer, or you don't think your boss is plotting on your life. But you get to the upper levels of the military and you're talking about war planners, people who are talking about murdering large number of people who are talking about putting people in black sites and torturing them. This idea of right and wrong doesn't exist. I mean, ultimately, it's cause and effect. We want to get this person and we want to put this person in a black site and torture this person. Now, to the everyday person, they have a hard time fathoming somebody behaving that way. So, that level of moral fuckery doesn't apply. I'll give you another example. Obama paying terrorists in order to undermine the Syrian government. Now, when you tell somebody that, it should stick in their throat when you say it. Paying terrorists, the president of the United States, the guy who was singing, Amazing Grace, that guy? Yes, that guy was paying terrorists. That stuff, when Reagan did that, there was a scandal. When Obama did it, nothing. Like that stuff gets. Our media is weird, man, in the way that, in the things that they in the things that they emphasize versus the things that they don't. And
they have an incentive to keep us tribal. They have an incentive to be pro-war, and it goes into their ownership. It goes into their agenda. So they are all of those things. Yeah. They give us this hyper-partisan bickery to make us seem like we have a choice, to make it seem like we have a choice, and to kind of keep us distracted. Who's the #1 personality right now? Rachel Maddow. Who's president? Donald Trump. When Obama was president, who was the #1 personality? Sean Hannity. What Sean Hannity provided was catnip for people that hated Obama. What Rachel Maddow provides is catnip for people that hate Trump. And it's a shame she went that route, because Rachel Maddow used to be one of the best journalists on MSNBC.
I used to love her show.
I used to, what I like to tell people? I used to refer to Rachel Maddow as the diamond in the rough. Now, when I see a segment from her, I go, "Ow, that was rough."
Yeah,
she has done a 180, and that is an understatement, and it is such a shame.
But I don't think it's a 180. Believe it or not, I don't think it's a 180. What I realized, I used to hit my head on this thing. There's an episode of True Blood, where I don't know if you watch True Blood, but there's an episode of True Blood. Okay, so one of the guys is he has a shapeshifter. He has a capacity to be a dog. Sam was this kind of like lovable character. Everybody thought it was, it's cute. He has this puppy, and he loves Sookie. And then later on third season or something, he murders a guy and throws his body in the river. You're like, oh my God, he just murdered a guy. Now, did Sam change? No. Our point of view of Sam changed. It looks like, from a relative perspective, that Sam and the personality, in this case, Rachel Maddow, has shifted. Rachel Maddow hasn't shifted at all. Rachel Maddow was just a Democrat. When Bush was in office, she could be as lefty as she want to be, and she could attack Bush like nobody's business, and she could be accurate with the facts because Bush was a horrible president. And now that Obama took office, well, not so much. Not talking so much about the drone stuff, not talking so much about that 80%, enshrining Bush's tax cuts in the law. And even at the end of Obama, makes this argument that Obama succeeded in his hope and change. Now you have Trump, and now she's going back the other way.
Well, I mean, yeah, maybe 180 is a bit much, but compared to where she was, even as recent as 2014 and 2015, compared to where she is now, I mean, she wasn't afraid to cover stories that were not as emphasized by most corporate outlets. She was kind of the only one pushing a lot of stories. And she was somewhat critical of Obama. Was she overall a little soft on him? Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you there. I mean, but
look at the interview between her and Clinton.
Compared to what she is now.
She's a Democrat. She has Clinton, the softest interview, like cotton soft, like the softest cotton that you could ever procure. It's like carried on the back of versions from the Nepalese, And at the very end, Rachel Maddow asks Clinton a critical question. And she says, look, the Clinton Foundation, if you're going to be president, are you going to keep the foundation? I mean, this looks a little dicey. Ultimately, you're getting money in one end, and yet you're in office. This looks problematic. Are you going to keep it?
And in fairness to Rachel Maddow, most people would be scared to ask that question.
Now, here's the catch, though. Clinton said, essentially, no. Right. I'm doing God's work, and we're not doing squat. We're not changing anything. And Rachel Maddow said, okay. And she just moved on.
That was it? She just moved on? All right. So, yeah, I mean, no, totally. I take your point, and I'm not trying to, I'm just saying, compared to where she was in, 2014, 2015, compared to now, huge difference.
Ron, I guess what I'm saying is it possible that what you're saying is differences, your relative perspective of how do you make a difference between her changing versus the political landscape changing? Like, your perspective of her makes it look like she's moving. Like if you're on a train and you can't necessarily tell the train is moving.
Because I feel like if she was the Rachel Maddow of 2014 and previous, I feel like she would be talking more about policies. Yeah. She would be talking more about what this Trump administration is trying to do.
Yeah.
Because, she opposes those policies. But she would be talking more about that as opposed to Russia.
Do you think she believes it, or do you think she's just Let me ask you this: why do you think she's doing it? Do you think because there are two
ratings
models? Do you think
ratings?
Oh,
I think she's a Rhodes Scholar. She is no dummy. She is smarter than both of us combined. She knows exactly what she's doing. Well, she's smarter than me. She's smarter than me.
No, listen to what I'm saying.
I said both of us combined because it's like, Jamarl, if you're up here, I'm like down here, so I would bring you down with me.
Whatever.
So that's why Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow's very intelligent. She's very intelligent.
She's very bright. Yeah.
Yes. And so she knows exactly what she's doing. She knows how it's working. She understands all that. She knows the fiddle she's playing, and she's fine with it. She doesn't care. And hey, whatever, what can you do? But what I'm saying is a couple years ago, that wasn't the fiddle she was playing. Maybe she always wanted to play that fiddle. Maybe at first she was like, man, I'm cool being in the rhythm section, but I want to be the lead guitar player, even though I have to throw my integrity out the window to play that lead guitar. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with playing lead guitar. I just made a music analogy for no reason. But
sympathy for the devil for the moment. Sympathy for the devil.
I'm not having, this isn't sympathy.
No, I'm talking about me. Is it possible that she thinks Donald Trump is a clear and present threat? Like, for example, I suspect that Bernie Sanders probably thinks Donald Trump is a clear and present threat. I think it's one of two things. Either she's doing it for ratings, either she thinks Donald Trump is terrifying, or she's a Democrat and she's just a hack who's essentially has an idea of what the network wants, and she's pushing this thing of a career.
I think it's a little bit of all the above, but I think she also knows what's buttering her bread, so to speak. I mean, I think that, you know, the statistics are out there that when you hit Trump on policy, when was Trump doing the worst? Trump was doing the worst when people were really hammering what the AHCA actually did. It was an anti-healthcare bill.
Yeah.
Because that's what the right has to do. Because when you have a right-wing healthcare plan, which is what Romney Care was, which is what we got, what do the Republicans have to do to outright that? Well, they have to have an anti-healthcare bill. They have to have a healthcare bill that strips healthcare away from people, which is what the AHCA would have done. So that's simply all they did. She knows that she knows that hammering on policy would be the key, but she chooses not to because it's not as good for ratings. It's not as good for giving people the anti-Trump catnip that her audience needs. And she knows that her audience is a niche at this point. The average MSNBC viewer is 68 years old. Yeah. People are fleeing cable news in droves. Yeah. And it is a sinking Titanic. So they're just going to ride that gravy train out as long as they can. She used to be the person that I would argue gave a hoot about journalism. I don't think that's the case anymore. Was she always more establishment than you or I? Abso-freaking-lutely. Did she always play the Democratic game more than you or I? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Oh, yeah.
But from a journalistic standpoint, was she a lot different in 2014, 2015, and prior versus now? I would say, yeah, big time. And it's a shame seeing what happened with her. Hey guys, thanks for watching. That was a clip from Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means I log on to a stream and people tweet me articles over on Twitter at Ron Placone, or they use our Reddit subsection, which is just Get Your News On with Ron over on Reddit. And that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all these articles for the first time. We are literally getting our news on together. Follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone so you can participate. And this show streams live every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please do tune in. If you want to support this show, you can do so over on patreon.com/Ron Placone, where for as low as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts every week, exclusive videos, free tickets to shows when I'm performing in your town, and more for as low as $1 a month. Please do consider it. Thank you so much for your support. This has been Get Your News On with Ron.